Good morning, gentlemen of YTPC. Well, I've always talked about my liking of bourbon, and I thought I'd just show you the State of the Nation collection, at least most of it, that I have in my cellar. And most of it is Kentucky bourbon, of course, but there's a few exceptions. Starting with, on the left, J Bowman. This one here. That is actually the more noble brother of Virginia Gentleman, which is inexpensive whiskey made in Virginia, which is hard to find actually almost outside the state of Virginia. I rather liked it because it was triple distilled, but in most commentaries it's regarded as an inexpensive mix cocktail whiskey. But the J Bowman is, if you like, the bigger brother, which is a very fine bourbon. And well, they call it whiskey because it's Virginia, and can't really call it bourbon, can you? But it's copper still, and it's triple distilled. And for many years that was actually one of my go-to bourbons. In the meantime, I've developed further and found other interesting ones. Everybody knows Elijah Craig. This is the small batch, 1789. So on the proof, that J Bowman, by the way, is 100 proof. Divide by 2 for the alcohol content, so 50%. And Elijah Craig small batch is 131.4 proof. And Elijah Craig, I find a good old classic, not too expensive. So all of these bourbons, when you buy them in Switzerland, cost you very approximately twice as much as you pay in the US, because the cost of shipping them over here and import taxes and whatever, and general rip-off means it's much more expensive for us. It does depend. Sometimes on the higher end bourbons you find the gap is smaller to the original price in the US, but it really depends. But fortunately, Switzerland is blessed with lots of import houses. It's very much an import-export type of country, so there's fairly good online choice of importers who keep a pretty good stock of all kinds of Scottish, Irish or American whiskies, Canadian, and of course bourbons as well. Moving on to Elijah Williams, talking of an old classic, Heaven's Hill type of bourbon. That's really a good name. Any Evan Williams is pretty good stuff, and they're very basic black label one, which is very inexpensive. I at the moment am a big fan of this bottled in bond. So you see it here, bottled in bond, and that not only means you know what you're getting, so someone's been checking up on how it's filled. That goes back to the days of prohibition, but it's become a brand name. And this Evan Williams Bottle and Bond is inexpensive and is extremely easy to drink. Now, all of my bourbons, I tend towards the sweeter, smoother ones, ones which have got a lot of the caramel in it, and often they're wheated. So in other words, they're not only rye and corn. Of course, most bourbons have a high level of corn. Some, I've got one here which is very much rye biased, but the sweeter ones sometimes use wheat to add a bit of sweetness, and I'm rather fond of that. I've got a sweet tooth, I'm afraid to tell you, for all those aficionados that like astringent and very tart, dry whiskies. I'm the opposite of that. So that Evan Williams Bottle and Bond is 100%, 100 proof, so 50% alcohol. Very, very, very good. Then I've got the single barrel Evan Williams. That costs a bit more, but that's also a truly excellent bourbon to go to. You know, it's one of Elijah Craig and Evan Williams, I think, are just ones you can't go wrong with. That single barrel Evan Williams is 86.6 proof. And I've got a bottle of 1783 small batch Evan Williams, which that one I haven't tried yet. All the others I've enjoyed in past bottles, which are long since empty. But the 1783 I haven't tried yet, and a lot of people have told me that's going to be even better. So I'm looking forward to that one. I've got a bottle of Old Forester, which has already been tried. 86% proof. This is the regular Old Forester, not the 1910 or the 1920 Prohibition bottles, which are a little bit more expensive, and this one was a little less expensive. The only reason I got this one is because this is the one I can get over here at the time I was looking. I'll keep my eye open for the other ones, but I actually thought this one was very, very good. Maybe not my first choice to go to, but for the price, I thought very, very enjoyable. So that's the Old Forester, the regular one. The next one is good old Fighting Cock. Okay, guys, settle down, stop laughing. I didn't invent the name, you know. But that is one of my great new discoveries. That's 6-year-old. That's 103 proof, Kentucky. And it is excellent. And it comes in a litre bottle. And already the price is pretty good. But with a litre, you got 25% more. So, and that's actually one of my big favourites at the moment in terms of price performance ratio. It's truly excellent. I took a bottle back to my relatives over Christmas where we stayed in southern Switzerland, and that entire bottle got emptied in one evening. Good, we were about seven guys there, but you know, it just shows you they loved it. They thought, you know, they're going to have to start getting some bourbon themselves. Then the next bottle on the right of that is Rebel Yell Small Batch Reserve. Now, this is a little less expensive than many bourbons. It's 90.6 proof, and it's a very smooth, easy to drink bourbon. It's not as intense with tastes, the various tastes that you can get from some others, but it's a very, very good affordable one, and I've had one or two bottles in the past and I'm still buying it, so that must mean that that's one that I like. And you see, in fact, on this one, the wheat, meaning this is in the mash bill, in other words, what grains are used for the fermentation, and that sweetens it up a little bit. You get various types of Rebel Yell bourbon. I always look out for this one. The problem in the bourbon world is they keep changing their labels and descriptions, and you're not sure sometimes, is that the old one just relabeled or is it something entirely different? But so you have to keep checking and looking. And if you find one you like, the best thing is to buy several bottles. I bought, for example, several of this because you never know how long it's going to be around, you know. The next one is Angel's Envy. And I saw some other YouTubers, YTPCers, have that in their bar. That's a very nice one. Very, very pleasant. 86.6 proof. I'm not myself a big fan of very high proof, the proof strength being very, very high. Some people like that, but basically a lot of alcohol numbs your tongue, so after 3 glasses anything would taste good. At least my tongue behaves like that. I know the specialists pick out and say, well, you can add a spoonful of water, but then sometimes I'm thinking, okay, why not just buy it at the right strength? The counter argument is the more proof you've got, the more bang for buck in alcohol. And if you dilute it a bit, you've got actually effectively more bourbon, don't you? So, I know there's counter arguments and arguments to it, and I have 1 or 2 higher strength proof bourbons. The next one, also from Kentucky, is Booker's. This was a somewhat more expensive one, of course, because it's single batch. It's even got the batch number, and if you go on YouTube you will find people who review one batch after the other very specifically, and this is 127.7 proof. And Booker's has an excellent name. It's a more pricey one for special occasions, but I've had one previous bottle of this and liked it very much. If I would drink it at that proof, I would probably add a little touch, a teaspoonful or 2 of water, just to soften the impact a bit. But generally I like my bourbon straight up. I don't even put ice in it, so that's my usual way to drink it. Then we come to an exception, which is the Bullite 95, which is small batch, but it is a rye whiskey. So this is 95% rye in the mash bill, which is very unusual to have it that high. Usually it's much more of a mix of corn and sometimes a bit of wheat, but normally the corn or the maize is the dominant component in the mash bill. And these tend to be a little drier and a little bit more sort of like regular whiskies that you get in Scotland or Ireland, but of course there's so diversity in taste that you can't really say it's like a Scotch at all. So I've had a few sips out of this one, and it's good. It's good. It's not too harsh, not too. There's no peatiness about it. So I think on certain occasions when I've got guests who prefer, those rather drier types of whiskies and much less sweet, then I would get this one out. I do have a collection of some Irish and a few others like Japanese and German whiskies. I've even got some Swiss whiskies because everybody and your mother nowadays is trying to make whiskey all over the world. In England they make it, in Wales. Now it's going to take them a long time to catch up to the masters in Ireland or Scotland. I'm rather partial myself to Irish whiskey because it's triple distilled mostly and it's very smooth. And but the Japanese have shown us that with time you can get just as good as they are, and Japanese whiskies are truly excellent. If you haven't tried them, have a look in YouTube. You'll get plenty of experts to advise you, and maybe try 1 or 2. And the last one on the right here is no surprise to bourbon specialist out there is Russell's Reserve 10-year-old, which is a Wild Turkey brand, but it's one of their best ones. That's 90% proof, or 90 proof, 45% alcohol, and that's an excellent one. Over the last 10 years I bought 3. This is the 3rd bottle of Russell's Reserve. It's fairly priced for a high quality bourbon, and I think it's a very, very fine example. So in the other place in southern Switzerland, I had a few others, like Johnny Drum Private Stock. I had some Smooth Ambler Old Scout 10-year-old. I had some Marcus Make 46%, which is one of those wheated bourbons, and I had Old Grandad 114 proof. Unfortunately, most of those bottles over the last 2 or 3 years have evaporated amongst my relatives. I should never have introduced them to bourbon, you know. Of course, I did have a drop myself, you know, truth be told. So that's my little bourbon collection. I plan on adding a few to it as time goes on, always to have a nice choice for celebrations. Cheers!